Welcome to Creating Sticky Grouped Headers in Flutter course. My name is Marco Napoli, and I'm an active Flutter developer. Now, this is the application that you'll be building. Do you need to create a grouped sticky header? There's a new widget in town. Oh yeah, the SliverMainAxisGroup. This widget allows you to arrange multiple slivers together. You can create sticky headers that are pushed out of view as each sliver group scrolls by. You'll learn to use the SliverMainAxisGroup with an AppBar or with a SliverPersistentHeaderDelegate to create sticky headers. This will give you two different ways to create sticky headers. Let's get an overview of what you'll be using to build the application. You'll use CustomScrollView using slivers for scrolling effects and performance. You'll group slivers with SliverMainAxisGroup widget containing sticky headers and group data. You'll create sticky headers for each group by using SliverAppBar. Alternately, create sticky headers for each group by using SliverPersistentHeaderDelegate, giving you two different ways to create sticky headers. You'll format the actual group data with a ListTile and a leading icon. Create a service to load JSON quotes list and map them to a class model. You'll create reusable widgets, and no third-party packages needed. Now, what are the steps to create a sticky grouped header? First, group data list by author. Use a SliverMainAxisGroup to group lists to show the sticky header in the quotes list by author. Use SliverMainAxisGroup to group list with SliverAppBar and quotes by authors widget. Alternately, use the SliverPersistentHeaderDelegate for sticky header. Now next, we'll create the demo, the application, and you'll need to get the starter project at the address shown. I currently have it running on the Android emulator, and we have a navigation bar at the bottom, two sections, by AppBar, by persistent header. We have a placeholder widget for both pages. And here's what we're looking. We have a list of widgets called body selected page that have these two pages, sticky AppBar list and sticky persistent header list, which will be the two different ways to create sticky grouped headers. For our body, we have an index stack, which this widget is great for performance. Also, as you switch between pages, you'll see as we start developing, wherever the scroll position is on each page, it will keep it there for us. So we're using the bottom navigation bar here, right? So the navigation bar widget with two navigation destinations, by AppBar and by persistent header. And when you select, all it does is call a set state here and sets the current page index to whatever was selected, so that will show the correct page. We also have a model. Let's open up the model. And let me scroll down first. The model is the sample JSON. And here's a little sample quote. So the quotes are made out of an ID, an actual quote, and the author that made the quote. So we have a class called quote, which stores the ID, the quote, and the author. And it does from JSON and to JSON, right? And then we have one more here, class quotes list model, which just is a list of those individual quotes that I just showed you. And we'll be able to call these static methods, quotes model from JSON, when we load them from our sample JSON file. And let me close that down. And this gives you just a very quick view of our template. And next, we're going to start creating the service, the quote service. Let's create the quotes service. So let's click on the lib folder, right click. Let's go to new, dot file. Let's create a folder called services slash, and let's call this quotes underscore service. And no need to do .dart. It will automatically create that for you and create the services folder for you too. Excellent. Now, instead of you watching me typing in all the code, I'm just going to paste it in, which you will have this from your helper files. So let's take a look at the quote service first, the first class. So this is just a feature. It's a static method called getQuotesList. And what it's going to do is going to take the root bundle, all right, and load from the assets data the quotes JSON file. So let's take a look at that real quick. Under your assets folder, you'll see data quotes. It's just a JSON file of all these different quotes by author. Let's close that down. So all it's doing is just loading it. We're going to take that file that we loaded. We're going to call the quotes list model, and we're going to call that quotes model from JSON, and it's going to read that JSON file and put it into the model class. Then we're going to take that list and we're going to sort it alphabetically. So we're going to compare the author from A to B, so that sorts alphabetically. And we're going to just return that quotes list. Now that we have a list of all these, of this JSON files, of all these quotes by ID, author, and the quotes, we want to group them by author. How do we do that? So we create an extension. In this extension, let's call it group by author map. It's going to be a list of quotes, okay? And what we're doing here is creating a map. So it's just a map of string, which would be the key, which would be the author's name, and then the list of quotes for each author. We'll call this group by author map. So we're going to declare here groups by author map list, which is that map, right? And we're going to say empty curly brackets, so it's just an empty map right now. Then we're going to take each list of authors and their quotes, which we loaded from the root bundle, right, from the JSON file, and we're going to group it. So for each quote, we're going to run this quote here. This is what does the grouping. It's going to say, okay, let's look at our map here. Is the key already there? In other words, the author name. If it's there, then keep adding the quotes to it. If it's not, create a new empty list and add the quotes. And then we're just going to return the group by author map list. Now, there's alternate ways to do this part here, the actual grouping. And I've pasted it here for you for your viewing, okay? This is the first one. This is one we're using. This is an alternate way. And another alternate way by using the put if absent, if you like, or actually a little bit longer way by using if and else statements, okay? Excellent. Now, next, we're going to create a widgets folder, and we're going to create the quotes by author widget, which will be a list of quotes. Now, let's create the widget quotes by author. I'm going to close these files down here. Let's go to project, under lib, right click, new, Dart file. So let's create a folder called widgets. Then let's do slash, and let's create this quotes underscore by underscore author. And again, let me close the left sidebar down. I'm going to paste this in because this is basically vanilla code. No need for you to watch me type it in. So let's take a look and see what this is, right? We created a stateless widget class, right? Let me save this. And the constructor here says that we're going to pass in an author and we're going to pass in the quotes, okay? So what does this mean? So this part here is basically just, we're going to convert this column and ListTile to a sliver to box adapter because we're going to create slivers to group the data. So all we have is a column with children, and it's going to say, all right, we're going to do a for statement, right? We're going to say this is the list of quotes that was passed in. Let's look at each quote. And for each quote, as it loops through here, we're using a ListTile to format the quotes on the screen. I give it a little bit of a content padding, right? 24 pixels. And I'm using this trick, is 3line equals to true here. When you have a leading icon like this chat bubble, is the title texture the actual quote? If it's multiple lines, the leading icon is centered instead of staying on the top, aligned to the top. By using this trick, is 3line true, it also requires a subtitle. We're just going to set the subtitle to the size box. So what it does, it makes the leading icon stay aligned to the top. Just a little trick. And the icon, of course, is that chat bottle. And the icon color is just going to be gray. And for the title, it's just the text. And we're going to take that quote and just show the quote, right? And I wanted to style it a little bit. So I took the theme of context from the text theme, and I style it to be title large. Excellent. Next, we're going to start modifying the pages that are there, and we're going to work on the sticky AppBar list page. Let's modify and work on the sticky AppBar list page. Let's close this down, open up the sidebar, and open up the sticky AppBar list. Excellent. So that you don't have to watch me just write and type some of the boilerplate code, let me just paste some of the items that we're going to work on here. First of all, let me bring in the quote here, and I start explaining some of this code. What we're going to do is, of course, this is a stateful widget that we're working on. And we want to declare a late variable, which is going to hold our quotes list, right? It's a future, and it's just a type of list of quotes. We're going to override the init state, and let's bring in the quote service. Very good. And on the init state, make sure they always put your code after the super init state. So we're going to initialize the quotes list by calling the quote service get quotes list. Perfect. Now let's work on our build. So we replace the placeholder with a scaffold that has an AppBar with just text that says, hey, quotes by AppBar, right? And then we're going to have a safe area, you know, the notches and all that on the different devices. The child is a future builder, a type of what? Yep, a list of quotes here. The initial data is just an empty list. The future is the quotes list, which is what we got here from the init state. And our builder is going to have a build context. And the snapshot, of course, is an async snapshot of list of quotes. So let us work on what we're going to do here. So what we want to do is now say, all right, the first thing we want to check is if the snapshot connection state does not equal done, right? Does not equal connection state done. So if it's not done, that means it's still trying to retrieve. So we want to return a circular progress indicator. And I'm going to put that in, I'm going to center it in the middle of the page. The child is going to be a circular progress indicator. Let's close that up. And that looks good. So we still need to return a widget though. But some of the things we're going to do first is let's get the snapshot and the data that came back from the snapshot. So this is going to be a list of type of quotes, right? So quote model. And let's just say quotes list. Let's call this. And it's going to initialize by the snapshot required data, which is what? A list of quotes, right? List quote. Perfect. Let's declare a final variable. Let's call this group by author map. So we want to group the list of, let me put this as lowercase list, of course. We want to group the list of quotes, right? So we're going to set that quotes list that we just received, group it by the author map. That's it. And that will group it for us, right? So now let's return a custom scroll view. Perfect. Because why? That's right, because we're going to return slivers, right? Let me scroll this up. Slivers are very performant, by the way. So slivers, very good. So let's do a loop. So we're going to do a for statement, right? Let's declare author and quotes, which is going to have our author in the list of quotes per author in the group by author map, and we want it to be a list of what? Entries, right? They're right there. As you can see, it's just an iterable of a map, right? Which the map is string, which is the key, the author name, and the list quotes of the quotes is the list of all the quotes per author. So what do we want to return? So to group them together, we have this beautiful new SliverMainAxisGroup, right? Which takes slivers. All right, so open and close brackets. So we want to return a SliverAppBar. And the title is going to be, we're going to use a text field, right? It's going to be the author in quotes key, because the key is the author name, right? And let's just style this a little bit. It's going to be a theme of context, a text theme, and we want this to be title large. And then we also want to override, we want to do a copy width. We want this to be bold. So we're going to say font weight is bold. That's looking really good. So after the text field, let's scroll up a little bit here. We want this to be pinned to be true. So in other words, as the list is being scrolled up, we want to pin each author. And once the author changes, we want it to go away. So force elevated, I'm going to put this to true because I want to emphasize the section. The shadow color, I'm going to put that as black. And center tile, I'm going to say false because I don't want this to be centered. Let me also put a comma right there. All right. So after the SliverAppBar, which is going to be our grouping, we want to show a list of all the quotes. So we're going to use our quotes by author, right? And what does it take? So it takes the author, which is the author in quotes. So author in quotes, the key, which the key is the author. And then the quotes, it's going to be a list, right? But we already have it here. We have the author in quotes value, which is the list of the quotes. So when we save this, and sometimes you'll get this error, just hit the hot restart here, run again, and it will start for you, okay? So as you can see, they're grouped. And as you scroll up, look at that. Oh yeah, going away. That's looking good. Albert Einstein, you can see it grouped the list of quotes for him. And as you scroll up, you'll see it'll keep going. So this is really good. Great job, guys. Now, next, we're going to create the sticky header delegate because now we're going to create a different way to do this. Instead of using the SliverAppBar with the SliverMainAxisGroup, we're going to use the header delegate to obtain the same effect. Let's close this down and let's create the sticky header delegate widget. So let's open up the sidebar on the widgets, right click, hit new, dart file, and let's call this sticky header delegate. Perfect. Let's import material. Great. And then we close the sidebar here. And let's create a class. So this class is going to be called sticky header delegate. And extends what? A sliver persistent header delegate. Perfect. Now, if you can see here, it's giving us a little, hey, we're missing overrides. And just click on create for missing overrides, and it creates them for us. So that's excellent. Now, let's go ahead and kind of override some of these items here. So first thing, I want to create here a constructor. Because what I want to do is I want to pass in a final string. And it's going to be the author, okay? And let's create the constructor. So it's going to be sticky header delegate, right? It's going to be name parameters. It's going to be required this author. All right? That's excellent. Now let's work on, let's override some of these bottom ones first. These will be a little bit easier. Let's override the getMax extent. And this is going to be just the K toolbar height. Okay. And let's override the minimum extent. In other words, what is the maximum height that we want this section to be? In other words, kind of like you see here, Abraham Lincoln, Einstein, right? What is the height? We don't want to be greater than the toolbar height. And if you hold on the Apple key and click, it'll tell you exactly under the constants. This is part of our Flutter. It's 56 pixels. Okay. So now from minimum extent, we'll do the same thing. K toolbar height. We just want this to be 56 pixels. That's it. Should rebuild? I'm just going to say false because we don't need this to rebuild. Okay. And it's going to say return false. Excellent. Now let's work on our build command. Now, so that you don't have to just watch me, and let me just delete the parts that we want here, okay? So instead of you watching me type all this code, this is basically boilerplate code. We're going to return a material here, okay? All right, let me scroll up. So all we're doing is we're returning a material with a deep purple of shade 200. I want to elevate to 12, so we have a nice little elevation here. Text style is then title large, bold. I want a little padding so that we have a padding on the left. And the alignment is going to be center left. And the child is going to be just the author. If it's not empty, you put the author. If the author is empty, somehow maybe there was a blank author, then it just shows blank. Okay? Pretty straightforward, overriding the SliverPersistentHeaderDelegate. Next, we're going to work on the sticky persistent header list, which is our last page. Let's work on the sticky persistent header list. Let's close this down and open up the sticky persistent header list. Now I'm going to do the same thing here. I'm just going to copy and paste so you don't have to watch me writing some of the boilerplate code. And again, this is another stateful widget. And let's bring in our quote model and our quote service. So we're doing the exact same thing that we did with the sticky AppBar list. We're going to create a quotes list, override the init state, call the quote service, get quotes list, initiate the quotes list, right? Just a list of quotes. But now we're going to do it a little bit differently. And I already got the code in here that gets the feature builder, the quotes list, right? And the progress indicator when the connection is not done. Now, instead of using a SliverAppBar, we're going to use something different. So again, let's do the same thing. I'm going to return a custom scroll view. Custom scroll view. Okay. Let's close that up. I'm just going to switch to the next section here because that's what we're working on now. And we have slivers. And on the slivers, we're going to do again that for statement, right? We're going to declare this final author and quotes in group by author map and the list of entries, right? Very good. So we're going to return what? A SliverMainAxisGroup, right? That's our magical widget that does the grouping for us. Excellent. And let me just come up here. I want to make sure that we have the square brackets here under slivers. So we're going to return what? Sliver persistent header, right? We're going to use the sliver persistent header. And remember, we created, I'm going to put a comma here. We created the sticky header. So sticky header delegate, right? Remember, we created that. And it takes an author. So let me just put this down here so we can see a little bit better. So the author is what? Going to be author in quotes, the key, right? Because that's, I'm going to save this. The key is the actual, what? The author's name, right? Let's go back here. So as you can see now, here's all the group of all the authors. That's looking pretty good. But we're missing the list, aren't we? Let's put a comma here. Let's put a comma after the sliver persistent header. And we're going to use that same widget that we did before with the AppBar, right? The quotes by author. There it is, right? And the author is going to be what? Author and quotes key, right? Key. And this, we go down to the next line, author and quotes values, right? There's the value, which is what? The list of quotes. And as you can see, it's working exactly the same way as by using an AppBar. Instead, this time we're using a sliver persistent header by the sticky header delegate that we created earlier. And it works exactly the same way. And by using that indexed, if you remember here, let me just open up the home page. Remember we used the index stack? And if you notice, as you go to each page, it remembers the scroll where you were before. Nice little edit feature. So excellent job. You created this application that creates sticky headers by using an AppBar or sliver persistent header with a sticky header delegate. Congratulations on creating the sticky grouped headers application. Now let's go over what you have accomplished. You used CustomScrollView slivers for scrolling effects and performance. You grouped slivers with the SliverMainAxisGroup widget containing sticky headers and group data. You used SliverAppBar to create sticky headers for each group. Alternately, used SliverPersistentHeaderDelegate to create sticky headers for each group. You used two different techniques to create sticky headers. You used ListTile and leading icon to view group data. You created a service to load JSON quotes list and map them to a class model. You created reusable widgets. You did not use any third-party packages. Thank you, and again, congratulations.